are listening to Travel with the Backpacking Housewife podcast. I'm your host, Janice Horton. Welcome to episode 2, in which I'm going to ask you the question, have you ever wanted to just take off and travel to explore the world? And do you think, obviously when it's safe to do so, that you would ever actually do it? While you're thinking about that question, I want to share with you my own personal story of when my husband and I were in our mid-50s and we sold everything we owned to travel the world. In sharing what we did, why and how we did it, and how that decision went in light of the pandemic, I'm hoping to inspire you, maybe not to sell everything, your home and business and cars and all your possessions as we did, because you might not need to do all that, but to see how you might be able to incorporate more travel into your new future, post-pandemic, and to embrace your travel dreams, your bucket list if you have one, and apparently over half of us do have a bucket list, and your plans for an adventurous life of travel in your midlife and beyond. We waited until we were empty nesters and our 3 children were through university and living life independently of us. And as we weren't quite old enough to take out a pension, and we didn't have much in the way of savings, we decided to liquidate all our assets by selling our home, our cars, and everything we owned in Scotland, UK. We've always been interested in travel, and we've always prioritised travel in our lives, even when the kids were growing up and we were building and renovating our family home, and money was tight. We were always working hard to save up for foreign holidays at the same time. And at one point I remember I had 3 part-time jobs, while my husband was starting up his own engineering business. We always made sure to get away somewhere exciting on a 2-week family holiday at least once a year. Even if it meant delaying our home renovations. Building the family home took over a decade in the end, and going without material things, like the fabulous curtain fabric that I'd bought for our sitting room that stood on its roll by the window for several years, we always started saving up for the next holiday on the day of our return. I suppose you could say that we were always planning for a life filled with travel. Our 3 boys were always enthusiastic accomplices, and they are so well travelled too that perhaps it didn't surprise them when Mum and Dad said, "Hey boys, we've decided to sell everything we own and go off and travel the world." I'm often asked if it was difficult or painful to discard all our worldly items and things that held precious memories. And the short answer is, yes, it really was. While our house was on the market, it took a full year to sell it. We began by sorting out the loft area, where we'd been stashing all our surplus items over the past 27 years. In preparation, we downsized our belongings and sold some items of furniture and the contents of my husband's much-loved man cave. Eventually, once the house had sold, our efforts to minimise our lives and liquidate our assets was ramped up, and we then sold our cars and pretty much everything else we owned. Didn't we keep anything? Well, actually, yes. By law, we knew that we needed to keep hold of our business accounting going back 6 years. So as we had to rent a small storage facility anyway, we decided to pack a suitcase each containing our good winter clothes of warm woolen sweaters and coats and boots for if we ever returned to the UK in the winter months. We also kept a box containing our family photo albums and a file containing birth and marriage certificates, plus any small trinkets that had sentimental value, and some artwork that I really loved, and a box of first edition books, because I actually had a fabulous library of books at one point that I simply couldn't bear to part with. Interestingly, this year, when we returned to the UK in March 2020, at the start of the pandemic, we went into our storage facility and disposed of all the outdated business accounts, and I sold the artwork and the books. I'd decided that if I'd managed to live without them for the past 6 years, I really didn't need them after all. Things that we didn't or couldn't sell from the outset, we gave away. Clothes and small appliances went to charity shops. The mainstay of my precious book collection I gave to various libraries or charity shops or to friends. And during that busy year of preparation, I did think about all the fabrics and furniture and appliances that I'd once coveted. The things I'd had to save for, sometimes for years, to furnish and decorate our beautiful family home. But I never once faltered in my belief that we were doing the right thing. We were chasing our dream of living a life of travel and adventure before we got too old to do it, and before any other factor could stop us. And we were prepared to step out of our comfort zone into the world and travel all the way round it with only our backpacks in order to experience real adventure and to learn more about the world around us. I knew that every pound that we salvaged from selling our possessions was going towards sustaining our new life, a life free of any material responsibilities. No mortgage, no cars, no baggage except for what was in our backpacks. I knew it would feel strange. I also knew it would be challenging, but I was excited. I was ready. Our dear friends threw us a farewell party, and I'm sure they thought we were completely mad and perhaps even having some kind of midlife crisis. But in our opinion, as none of us will get to live forever, and unless we suffer the alternative, we are all aging. I know we only get one life, so why not live your dream while you can? Favouring spontaneity and freedom, we set off with something of an ambiguous plan. But to start off, we booked flights to the Caribbean via the USA. We planned to spend several months exploring the Caribbean before flying back to the USA and then on to Asia, and to make our way slowly around the whole world. And to date, 7 years later, we've been round the whole world twice and we've explored 56 countries. We've had the most incredible experiences, many of which I've still to write about for my website and to tell you about in this podcast. And we've met so many lovely people all over the world. We have absolutely no regrets about selling all our material things. But then, of course, 2020 happened. Right now, as I record this, we are still back in Scotland, and it feels like life has come full circle for us. It feels surreal that travel has become impossible, that borders are closed and doors are shut, and a deadly virus is killing people. Of course, now there's hope on the horizon, a light at the end of this terrible period of life here on our planet. Because we now have vaccines, and while we wait and while we're paused, we just need to hope that the vaccine programme can reach as many people around the world as possible in as short as time as possible, so that we can all stop living in fear and in lockdown. On the 12th of March 2020, we returned to the UK from house sitting in France, where I've been writing my Backpacking Housewife series of books for HarperCollins. Flying from Bordeaux into Scotland to see 2 of our 3 sons who live in Glasgow and Edinburgh. We'd only envisaged a short stay in the UK to see family and friends before setting off on another epic long-haul backpacking trip around the world. We had plans at first to head over to Central America and then spend another summer in the Caribbean. We were looking forward to staying on a small island off the coast of Honduras, where we'd rent a small house and catch up with our friends and live island life for a while before returning to the UK 6 months later, in October 2020, to attend our eldest son's wedding in Scotland. As we were leaving France, we'd become aware of the COVID-19 outbreak, not only because we'd been chatting to one of our sons who lives in Daegu, South Korea, as they were in lockdown, but also on the news that COVID had reached Italy. But perhaps foolishly, we didn't think it would affect our plans. The same day we arrived back in the UK was the day that all flights were suspended into the USA from Europe. And all the flights and trains and boats and buses that we'd booked in advance, against our normal go-with-the-flow policy, but to keep tight control of our travel budget for the year, all fell like a row of proverbial dominoes. We found ourselves stuck and scared. Because we were now homeless, we couldn't expect family and friends to give us a place to stay for what looked to be an extended period of time. And we quickly realised with a sinking feeling that the situation was serious. We weren't going anywhere anytime soon, and this was going to last for months rather than weeks. Although, of course, we had no idea it was going to take years, and I'm rather glad I didn't know, actually, because I will admit to you that I had a bit of a panic attack right then. Luckily, a good friend helped us out by sharing her home with us until we managed to find a house to rent back in Scotland. And we're currently renting a house very near to where we used to live before, and at first it felt very strange. I think I was experiencing some kind of culture shock because prior to being in France, we'd been living in Asia, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and then Vietnam. Unexpectedly, finding ourselves living back in Scotland felt unreal. It felt as though we'd never actually left at all, and the past 7 years of travelling had all been nothing but a wonderful dream. So why, in the middle of a pandemic, am I still advocating to you a life of travel and adventure? The answer is because, after having experienced 7 years of travel and then being curtailed and grounded, our passion for wanderlust has only increased and been fuelled to travel again, when of course it's safe to travel again. And because right now really is the perfect time to plan for our travel adventures in the new future. That is, if you, like me and my backpacking husband, have ever dreamed of shrugging off the shackles and taking off to have fabulous adventures and travel the world. But it's not that easy, I hear you say. And I agree, it's not that easy. It's likely impossible to take off and leave behind a family, a home, a job and responsibilities. But what about after that? I've been asked how I can travel across the world and leave my family behind. Well, my answer to that is even when we live in the same country, we don't get to see our family all the time. Our grown-up children have their own lives. They have careers and they are busy people. Should we sit in the house waiting for them to visit us? Or should we live our own lives to the full and return occasionally when we've arranged to spend some quality time together? Or better yet, encourage them to visit us. The joy of travel is that we've been able to visit our family and friends, and they've been able to visit us sometimes when we've been in far-flung places of the world. And I believe we've done a good job bringing up our kids to be successful adults who live independently of us. Our middle son, when he finished at university in Edinburgh, happily went off to South Korea to teach English. 6 years on, he's still there. He lives in Daegu and he's now married to his lovely Korean wife, and we have a beautiful grandson. And until the COVID-19 situation, we've been able to see them every 6 months since our grandson was born. Thanks to social media, we can still keep in touch with our family every day using Facebook or Skype or Zoom. But what about in a family emergency? It's important to note that we've always been prepared to come home, and we have done so at a moment's notice. And wherever we've been in the world, we have never been more than 24 hours or a day's flight away. Perhaps the world is more accessible than you might think. These days, more and more midlifers and empty nesters are looking at how to incorporate more travel into their lives and how to shake off those shackles that tie them down. And by exploring your own situation, as long as you have reasonable health and access to some savings or a pension payout or assets that you can turn into cash, then a life of freedom and travel is a real possibility rather than just a dream, and it really can cost a lot less than you might think. In my opinion, it takes planning, good timing and bravery on your part, because a lot has changed within a generation. Those in their midlife of 50 and 60 and older are increasingly looking to travel, and many have the resources to do it. Some home-owning midlifers and empty nesters rent out their homes to fund their long-term travel expenses or to cover payments on an existing mortgage. If you don't have a mortgage to cover, then maybe you might want to get some house sitters in to take care of your home and garden and pets while you're away. House sitting is a great option to consider, not only to facilitate slow travel, but also if you feel uncomfortable not having a home base while abroad, or if you have a home that you're reluctant to sell and you need it to be looked after in your absence. The backpacking husband and I have done lots of house sitting and would highly recommend it to you as a part of a long-term travel strategy. If you don't own a home and you currently rent one, then you should see your situation as being a step ahead in flexibility, because you can always rent somewhere new. Then you'll be able to fly off to your bucket list destinations and experience them for yourself. And I can tell you that there really is nothing like seeing for yourself all those amazing destinations that had previously only been available to you via a TV screen, a travel blog, or an Instagram post. And if you're smart and savvy about it, then it can be much cheaper to travel the world than you think, especially if you've gone the whole hog and sold up everything, because then you'll have no home-based bills to pay. Okay, you'll still have to eat, but you'll have to eat wherever you are in the world. And I can assure you that a delicious noodle dish and a bottle of local beer in Thailand, for example, will set you back a lot less than shopping in, insert the name of your local first world supermarket, for your dinner. My top travel tip is to join airline and hotel loyalty programs as soon as you start out and start collecting miles and points. All the main airlines and the major hotel chains around the world have loyalty programs, and it's possible to build up enough points to get free flights. Hotel points, usually, in our experience, add up much faster and prove more valuable than air miles, and they equate to upgraded rooms, perks during your stay, and even free nights. We are signed up with IHG, the Intercontinental Hotels Group, who have lots of hotels and resort names under their international and European banner, in all price brackets, from luxury properties like the Intercontinental Hotels to mid-priced hotels like the Holiday Inn and budget stays at Holiday Inn Express and Crowne Plaza, just to name a few. It's worth knowing that booking directly with them is usually how to get the best prices. Collecting loyalty points works for us, so be sure to sign up for hotel rewards as soon as you start travelling. So my mission for this weekly podcast and for my website at thebackpackinghousewife.com is to spread the word to all of you out there who are in your midlife or older, those thinking of taking a work sabbatical, or empty nesters thinking of taking retirement early, or perhaps you're approaching your full retirement years and looking longingly at your bucket list. I want to encourage and inspire all of you who dream of travel to start planning right now. I can promise you that it's not too late to embrace your travel dreams. I'll also occasionally be posting about travel writing and my books and the romantic places and adventurous experiences that have inspired my own stories, in the hope that I can inspire you too to write and journal your own experiences. Did I happen to mention that all my best-selling romantic adventure books are available from Amazon, and that my Backpacking Housewife series of books are published by HarperCollins? And so back to my original question. Have you ever thought of taking off to travel and explore the world? Let me know. I'm on Facebook as the Backpacking Housewife. I'm on Instagram as Janice Horton Writer. And if you're on Twitter, please do tweet me your travel goals and your questions at Janice Horton. That's JANICEHORTON. And come and travel with me here on Travel with the Backpacking Housewife podcast. Subscribe and follow for inspiring and informative new episodes each week, in which I'll be discussing ways to plan for and to prioritise travel in our lives and in our new future, in what is set to become a new and golden age of travel.